Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Covering both sides of the big issues with the analysis you trust on News Radio 1040 WHO.
We were talking very briefly earlier about the fact that it were coming up on a year since that condo collapse took place in Florida. And this is very relevant to an awful lot of people listening to me right now because, of course, we have many snowbirds in Iowa. You've all flown home right now. And it feels more Florida here the last couple of days than it does in Florida. I know. Very weird. But anyway, you would hope that we would know, right, by now, a year on, what happened. Because in order to avoid it happening again, we need to know what happened. Well, now we're being told that the inquiry into the collapse of the 12-story condo tower will not conclude until 2024. What is going on? Well, joining us to talk about all of that right now is a guy called David Rauch. He is an expert on HOA safety. Hi, David.
Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm good. Why is this taking so long?
Well, there's a number of problems, and it's really going to be difficult to determine exactly what precipitated that collapse, because the problems are that, they built a penthouse on the top after it was permitted. They had defects in the pool deck, weak concrete. Supposedly some of the columns were too small and there was too little rebar. So there were a bunch of building defects. But none of those really caused the entire building to collapse. It was probably a combination of those, and to figure that out is going to be very difficult.
So are the inspectors that one hopes goes around to these buildings from time to time, are they not really qualified to say, we need to evacuate this building, it's unsafe? Are they not qualified to do that?
Well, actually, most of them are qualified to do that. The problem is there's a very shortage or a dearth of structural inspectors in Florida. I mean, you got to remember, there's 48,500 HOAs, community associations, in Florida. Mm-hmm. There's got to be at least 1,000 of those high-rises similar to Champlain Towers down there in Florida. So, all of them needing that inspection now is going to be very, very difficult. But I am here to tell you that there's actually a problem that I've identified with the setup of that building.
Great. Tell me what it is.
The real problem that happened there isn't so much, what caused the collapse, the physical problem, the physical defect. What happened was the association was never given a maintenance manual or instructions by the developer in 1980. In other words, you get a car that's worth $30,000, $20,000, you get a maintenance manual in that glove box. They were never given a maintenance manual, nor were they given a maintenance program which tells them how to do those inspections. The maintenance manual is just a set of inspections month to month. They were never given that manual. They were never set up on a maintenance program, and they were never given a reserve study in the beginning. Later on, they did get a reserve study. So without instructions to do regular inspections and maintenance, that board of directors, and these are just normal people on that board of directors, they didn't know what to do. They didn't have any impetus to do the correct maintenance. And indeed, when the problem started to show, it was a $3 million problem. They waited and waited because it's difficult to increase the monthly assessments on your neighbors. And they waited, and then in 2018, it was a $9 million problem. 2021, it was a $16 million problem. That's what happened to Champlain Towers.
Right. Well, if they knew they had the problem, I come back to why didn't the inspectors shut it down?
They don't have the capability to do that, I don't think. The city of Surfside, probably could have done that, but putting people out on the street when you've already got a good population of homeless, it has to be a difficult thing. I've not heard of too many cities actually condemning a residential high-rise. And as a matter of fact, I think one of the inspector, the structural inspector in 2018 came in, and he said, hey, everything looked fine. So it was not an easy situation, but that is a good question.
All right. Well, we're now being told we're not going to get this report of the federal investigation until 2024. Is that just federal government being federal government, or is there some issue that is making it difficult for them? Because, it's not surprising to a lot of us listening right now that the federal government can't tie its own shoes. And that's not a party political issue, by the way. That's just the federal government.
There's absolutely no doubt that the federal government is the federal government. Half the things that the federal government does makes no sense. And so you've got that to begin with. And then, of course, like I said, this is a very complex problem. This is like taking 1,000 Rubik's Cubes and putting them back together. You saw pictures of that collapsed building.
Sure.
And nobody has good pictures of it when it was whole. So, you got a lot of moving pieces here.
Okay,
and
well, we could identify, couldn't we... excuse me, something happened to my voice just then. Couldn't we identify that as a problem in and of itself? The inspectors don't have good pictures? Surely they should have good pictures from the last inspection, right?
Well, but again, that's the problem I'm trying to explain, that by not having a maintenance manual, the maintenance manual mandates that the association, the board, and the manager do regular inspections, and they have logs of those inspections, and they have pictures of the things that they find. And maintenance manuals are only required in California, Oregon, and Minnesota right now.
Right.
And they're
I
not
hear that.
statewide.
I hear that. My point is not the HOA. My point is the city's building inspectors, because they inspect these buildings. As you just pointed out, in 2018, they inspected it and they said, yeah, we're all good here. And I completely accept what you're saying, David, but shouldn't the city inspectors have decent photographs?
Normally, I don't believe so. No, the association itself should have those photographs.
I agree.
In the private inspectors' reports. Florida requires an inspection of their high rises at 40 years. Mm-hmm. And during that inspection, there are a lot of photographs. And they did have that inspection, and they did have those photographs, but they didn't have photographs of all of the problems that they had there. They just had certain photographs of the structure. So
right.
Anyhow, it's a very difficult problem.
So as I say, a lot of people listening to us right now are snowbirds. They quite probably own property in Florida. I'm sure a lot of those are indeed condos. When I want to stay at the beach, I stay in somebody else's privately owned condo overlooking the Gulf of Mexico, typically. And you want to know that your home now is safe, right? And there was the rush after everybody died. In 98, people died. People forget that, right? We managed to pull 4 people out of the rubble. One of those died. And we need to know what is going on in the state of Florida that prevents this from happening again. And the scary part of what you're saying to me is nothing.
Well, no, that's not true.
Okay.
Florida did just pass a law statewide that required building inspections at 30 years old, not at 40. So they lowered that, and they require them every 10 years thereafter. They also made it mandatory for their buildings to have reserve studies, and that's a big plus. Those are 2 big pluses. And it removed the opt-out funding on the reserves, structural integrity components, and it did a few other things. But that law should help. But my problem is the law did not require maintenance manuals for new buildings that are being built, and it's insane. You get a maintenance manual with a car. You get a maintenance manual with your Peloton. You get a maintenance manual with your blender, but you got a $150 million high-rise in Florida, and you don't get a maintenance manual.
So why do you think they left that out?
The main reason is because developers do not want to make it harder to sell their units. If they have to adopt a maintenance manual and do those inspections, that's going to cost money, which increases the monthly assessments for those buyers. And when you increase those monthly assessments, you limit the number of people qualified to buy in your high-rise. And that's the main reason, is they don't want to limit or reduce their sales.
So, in your opinion, you're an expert on this. You are the CEO and founder, by the way, of ProTech Building Services, and you've been doing that since 1996. So, the people listening to me right now who own condos in Florida and Arizona, probably, should they be worried right now or not?
Well, if they live in a high-rise or any building that has, and they can see it immediately, visible deterioration. Certainly, you saw pictures of Champlain Towers. There was water in those hallways and below decks in the garage areas. Mm-hmm. You see water ponding anywhere, that's a problem. And they need to, discuss that with the manager. What's going on? Why isn't this fixed? So, yeah, and Iowa does have 2,000 to 3,000 HOAs in Iowa.
Oh, sure.
So there are HOAs, common interest developments in Iowa.
We don't have too many high-rises.
No, probably, I don't know, you could count them, and I guess the only place would be high-rises in Iowa would be Des Moines, correct?
Well, maybe some of the other bigger cities, but there aren't too many high-rises in Iowa, trust me. Okay, so this is very interesting. So you just said something which made me raise an eyebrow. So the last time I stayed at Pensacola Beach, we're on the beach, right? We're in a condo. We're actually on the top floor of the condo. Building. I think it was 16 stories high. I believe so. And the parking lot under the building definitely had pooling water every time it rained, because it's Florida, and that happens.
Exactly. And if it rains and there's ponding water, that's fine as long as it runs off. Water is, buildings are built so that at a 1.5% pitch so that the water runs off. That wasn't what happened in Champlain Towers in Florida.
Gotcha.
That water was just sitting there, rusting the rebar in the concrete below.
Understood.
And here's the real problem with this, and why a maintenance manual, a maintenance plan is needed. You had a deck collapse in Berkeley, California, in 2011, killed 7 students. Nobody ever inspected that deck, and you couldn't see it if you even inspected it, because the rot was occurring within the stucco. So that's why inspections are so important.
David, thank you very much for coming on. Very interesting conversation indeed. 1 year on from the condo collapse in Surfside. We do not have a federal report. We're not going to get one, apparently, until 2024. Thank
you, Simon.
But David had some things to say. Appreciate you. Have yourself a great rest of the day. Okay, sir?
Thank you, Simon.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.